She had always been told her dreams were too big. A Blackhawk pilot? For someone like you? They'd laughed, doubting her ability, questioning her worth. But on one rainy night, she proved them all wrong. Her Blackhawk soared above the clouds, cutting through the storm with precision. But this wasn't just a victory for her. It was a powerful moment for everyone who had ever been held back by their race. What happened next would shake their world and show them exactly what she was made of. It was a late afternoon when Captain Maria Hernandez first set foot at the base. The hangar doors slid open, revealing rows of aircraft, their engines humming softly as if waiting for her. Maria had dreamed of this moment for as long as she could remember. Ever since she was a little girl, watching airshows with her father, who had served as a mechanic in the military. She remembered the excitement in his eyes as he pointed out the Blackhawks, telling her, "One day, you'll fly one of those." Maria was always determined to prove herself. But as she got older, the road became harder. Her ambition met with doubt, especially in a field where few women, let alone women of color, had flown such powerful machines. The more she excelled, the more the whispers came, whispers that echoed in the background of every briefing room, every training session, and every flight. Some were outright dismissive, others subtle. But all of them in some way said the same thing: she won't make it. At the academy, Maria often felt like she was always one step ahead, but still being held back by an invisible hand. The instructors, the peers, and even the occasional passers-by would give her that look. A look that carried years of history, the weight of every barrier ever placed in front of someone like her. But Maria was used to that look. It was one she had seen her whole life, from the playgrounds to the classroom to the military. It wasn't enough to make her give up. In fact, it made her fight harder. Now, at the Blackhawk training program, she was determined to push past every obstacle. Her heart raced as she climbed into the cockpit, gripping the controls with steady hands, feeling the roar of the engines beneath her. This was her moment to prove that she belonged here just as much as anyone else. But what she didn't know was that tonight would be different. She had no idea how much this flight would change everything. The rain had started to pour as she prepared for her first solo night mission. The darkness, combined with the storm, created an atmosphere thick with tension. It wasn't just the weather that made Maria uneasy. Tonight, she wasn't just flying against the elements. She was flying against every doubt, every sneer, every barrier that had been placed in her way. And the storm outside was nothing compared to the one waiting for her in the air. She adjusted her headset and checked the instruments. Her breath was steady, but her thoughts were racing. Could she prove them wrong? Could she show them that this Blackhawk pilot was more than just a woman of color? She couldn't afford to think about it too much. The mission was simple: retrieve a K-9 unit stranded in the field, but with the weather conditions, even that was a risky task. As the Blackhawk lifted into the storm, Maria's confidence grew. The rain lashed against the windows, and the howling wind made it difficult to hear, but she knew what she had to do. She wasn't just piloting this aircraft. She was flying for something bigger. She was flying for every person who had ever been told they couldn't do something because of who they were. But the night was just beginning. As Maria maneuvered through the thick clouds, she knew this flight would not just define her career. It would define her fight against every form of prejudice she had ever faced. Before we continue, we need your support to reach 1,000 subscribers. If you're enjoying these impactful stories, please hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to us. Collision. Don't forget to like, comment, and let us know where you're watching from. Has something like this ever happened to you? Share your story, and let's start a conversation that matters. And stay tuned for the next part of this story. It has a twist you won't want to miss. Now, let's get back into it. Together, we can make a difference. Raising hands. As Maria navigated through the storm, the sound of the Blackhawk's engine roaring in her ears, she could feel the tension building. The rain was relentless, hammering against the windows like 1,000 tiny fists. The storm outside seemed determined to tear her down, but Maria's focus remained unshakable. She could see the flashing lights of the K-9 unit on the ground below, guiding her through the darkness. It was a routine mission, one that any other pilot would have completed without hesitation. But this wasn't just about the mission. This was about proving that she was capable of handling the unexpected. Her fingers moved over the controls, adjusting the speed, compensating for the erratic winds, and stabilizing the craft as best as she could. Every second felt like a battle. She had trained for years, but nothing could have fully prepared her for the moment when everything began to go wrong. It started with a loud bang. The Blackhawk shook violently, throwing her forward against the harness. Her heart raced as she quickly checked the gauges. There was a malfunction in one of the rotors. The helicopter's stability was compromised. She gritted her teeth and focused. She had been trained for emergencies, but this was different. The rain was blinding, the winds were unpredictable, and the altitude was too low for comfort. Maria's mind raced. This wasn't just about a machine breaking down. This was a life-or-death situation, and not just her own. The K-9 unit was depending on her. They couldn't afford to be stranded, especially not in these conditions. She fought to regain control, keeping the helicopter steady as she rerouted to a nearby clearing, but the storm made it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Her training kicked in, but the pressure was mounting, and the whispers from years ago, the doubts, the dismissals, crept back into her mind. You don't belong here. You can't handle this. But she couldn't afford to entertain those thoughts. The radio crackled to life, and a voice on the other end cut through the chaos. Captain Hernandez, you need to abort. The storm's too severe. It's not safe to continue. She paused, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders. Negative, Maria responded, her voice steady despite the panic swirling in her chest. I'm going through with it. There's a K-9 unit out there that needs us. We're going to make it. For a moment, the voice on the radio hesitated, then replied with a quiet, resigned, "Copy that, Captain. We're with you." The support was there, but the trust, was it really? Maria clenched the controls tighter. She couldn't turn back now. Every instinct in her told her to keep pushing forward, to prove that she was more than the doubts they had all tried to impose on her. The K-9 unit was still waiting. She couldn't let them down. As the Blackhawk continued to fight against the storm, Maria's determination grew stronger. She was flying through the heart of the storm, but this time, it wasn't the elements she was fighting against, it was a lifetime of injustice. She had been told time and time again that she wasn't cut out for this life. But tonight, in the middle of the storm, she was going to show them just how wrong they were. But the real test was yet to come. The rain hammered the cockpit like an unforgiving drumbeat, but Maria's focus never wavered. She had to get to the K-9 unit, and she had to do it fast. As she descended through the clouds, the wind howled like a wild animal, pushing the Blackhawk off course. The rotor's malfunction was growing worse, and with each passing second, Maria felt the controls slipping from her hands. Suddenly, the lights of the K-9 unit flickered in the distance. Maria's heart leaped. She was close. But just as she was preparing to make her final approach, the helicopter jerked violently, and the cockpit lights went out. She was plunged into darkness, the only light coming from the intermittent flashes of lightning outside. Her pulse quickened as the radio crackled again. "Captain Hernandez, do you copy? What's your status?" The voice was urgent, panicked. Maria swallowed hard. "I'm coming in. I need 10 more seconds." She fought to stabilize the helicopter, but it felt like an eternity. The storm was relentless, and she knew she was running out of time. With every ounce of strength, Maria fought the controls. She was descending too quickly. The ground below was closing in fast, but the K-9 unit was still out there. She couldn't fail them now. "Hold tight," she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath. This wasn't just a mission. This was her fight for respect, for validation, for everything she had worked for. At the last possible moment, she pulled up, narrowly avoiding the trees that threatened to tear the Blackhawk apart. She could see the K-9 unit now, and with her heart racing, she steadied the descent. With the storm still battering the helicopter, Maria touched down, safely. But the job wasn't done yet. There was no time to celebrate. The K-9 unit was waiting, and so were the eyes of the people who had doubted her. As the door opened, rain poured into the cabin. Maria's breath was ragged as she looked down at the K-9 officer, his dog by his side. He gave her a nod, a silent acknowledgement of the impossible feat she had just pulled off. But that moment of triumph was short-lived. In that brief silence, Maria knew something had changed. She had shown them. She had proven that no storm, no matter how fierce, could ever break her. Yet, as she looked into the eyes of the K-9 officer, a question lingered in her mind. Would they ever truly see her as more than a woman of color in a man's world? Only time would tell. Maria sat quietly in the cockpit, her hands still gripping the controls, the engine's hum now a distant memory. The storm had passed, but the weight of the mission was still with her. She had completed the impossible, landing safely and retrieving the K-9 unit, but the journey didn't end when the helicopter touched down. It never did. As she descended from the cockpit, the rain continued to pour, but Maria stood tall, her uniform drenched, but her resolve unwavering. The K-9 officer came over, his dog now relaxed at his side, and he offered her a firm handshake. The unspoken gratitude was palpable. But more than just gratitude, it was respect. The respect that Maria had fought so hard to earn. Still, the whispers from the past echoed in her mind. She had been doubted, ridiculed, and made to feel like she didn't belong in this world. But now, there was a sense of closure. She wasn't just a woman of color in the military anymore. She was a Blackhawk pilot, one who had proven that she could handle anything that came her way, no matter how fierce the storm. As Maria climbed back into the Blackhawk, preparing for the flight home, she felt a sense of pride. It wasn't just about the mission. It was about breaking barriers, smashing stereotypes, and showing the world that no matter your race or background, you could rise above. But even as the Blackhawk ascended into the now calm sky, Maria knew her journey was far from over. This was just one victory in a long battle against racial injustice. This story wasn't just her story. It was the story of every person who had ever been told they couldn't achieve something because of who they were. The fight wasn't over. And as she looked out at the horizon, Maria made a silent promise to herself and to those who came after her. She would continue to push forward, no matter the storm. And just like that, Maria had overcome the odds, showing the world exactly what she was capable of. But her journey is just one of many stories we need to hear. Stories of struggle, triumph, and the fight against racial injustice. These are the stories that need to be shared, stories that remind us all that change starts with understanding. If you believe in the power of sharing these impactful moments, make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us on this journey. Your voice matters. By subscribing, liking, and commenting, you're helping us create a space where these important conversations can thrive. Tell us your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a moment like this, where you had to prove your worth? How did you push through the challenges? We want to hear your story. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. Your engagement helps us reach more people and spark more conversations about change. Stay tuned for more powerful stories. Together, we can make a difference.